While many of you were sleeping, tens of thousands of people across the country, including right here in Utah, were traveling to another galaxy. After hours, even days of waiting in line, Star Wars fans finally got what they wanted at 12:01 this morning. Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, brings the series full circle, and so far the reviews are out of this world.
I cried for more than a half hour. It was that good.
Yeah, I couldn't even stand up after the credits started rolling, and I had to sit there and compose myself.
I would say this is my favorite of the six. Now, granted, I just saw it and it's new, but I don't see how it could be topped.
It just blows you away. It's absolutely amazing.
I think they were all in the same group. Sitting there, we probably should get another opinion, but the final episode of the Star Wars series is on track to being one of the highest one-day sales in history. And by the way, we hear nationwide plenty of people are calling in sick. They call it the Jedi flu or something like that, apparently suffering from that, that Star Wars fever.
There are even a few websites you can go to that help you put a sick note together for your teacher or your boss if you were going to be out for Sar Wars. Is that crazy?
Just fess up and say, I'm going to Star Wars.
I know.
Hey, you might meet your boss there.
Yeah, that's true. With the same note.
Let's look outside, Gary. Here we go. From our rooftop camera, it's looking like this outside. Bouncing around, we got a little breeze, but I wanted to show you the high elevation snowpack that is yet to come down.
Well, the dark side rules in a record-setting way at the box office. The long-awaited Star Wars Episode 3 shattered the box office records. Revenge of the Sith grossed nearly $125 million from Thursday to yesterday, and it made $108.5 million during its official weekend run, which is Friday to today. Last week's winner, Monster-in-Law, came in a very distant second. It was followed by Kicking and Screaming, Crash, and Unleashed.
Ooh. Many who know George Lucas say much of the Star Wars success is because of Lucas's attention to detail. Others might call him a control freak, but Fox's Bob Buckley reports one writer knows things about Lucas that he doesn't want you to know.
As the Star Wars heroes flew their fighters into battle, the series' creator had a battle of his own to gain hold of a life that seemed to be flying with the same abandon after such sudden success.
It spawned a whole series of decisions that I had to make about how I was going to handle this success, and managed to kind of wrest control of it and use it to help me have more say about what my destiny was going to be in the creative side of my life, which was important to me.
Wrest control. Remember that phrase because it has been key to George Lucas' life since he was 18.
Right when I was about to graduate from high school, I was in a really bad car accident that I should not have survived by any logical reasoning, and almost didn't survive, but I did.
That car accident is the central scene in the definitive biography of Lucas, written by North Carolina School of the Arts film dean Del Pollack.
The crash defines him as a person and gave him both a mission that he felt he had, and also, I think, in a certain way, unleashed his imagination.
Pollack has produced movies and was film critic for the Los Angeles Times. He interviewed more than 100 people for the book and spent more than 70 hours with Lucas himself. That kind of thoroughness led one of those news magazines to call Pollack recently. You know who I'm talking about, those guys with the stopwatch. They're doing a profile on George, and they were looking for something other than the Lucas party line.
They had read my book, and they said, we think you can provide that. And I said, I'd be happy to. And then they called me back, and they said, well, they had spoken to George, and that he said that if I was going to be interviewed, he wouldn't participate. So I got dropped. I was surprised that this bastion of investigative reporting would cave quite so quickly. But it didn't seem to bother them, so I wasn't going to let it bother me.
Remember what Lucas said earlier?
Wrest control of it.
He managed to wrest control of his life and image and wasn't going to let anyone, including Del Pollack, change that.
I think he thought it was gossipy, and I think it's always a shock for someone to see themselves really depicted in print, in black and white. And everything was on tape, so it was hard for him to say, well, I never said that. He tried that, but we had the tapes, so it was quite clear what he had said.
So as the final installment of Star Wars sends George Lucas to galactic heights of riches and fame, Dale Pollack sits quietly in his office in Winston-Salem, content in what Lucas has taught him.
My big lesson after writing this book is to not write another biography of a living person, because it just gets really complicated. People have trouble seeing their lives laid out in front of them in a way that they may or may not remember it.
Bob Buckley, Fox News.
While the book was not mean-spirited, it did mention personal things, including the fallout between Lucas and his mentor, Francis Ford Coppola. Lucas did most of the setup for and wanted to direct Apocalypse Now, but Coppola got tired of waiting for him to finish Star Wars, and he did it himself. A fight on the stage and a fight in the Senate.
We'll take a look at the week ahead.
Plus, the NBA finally